The following is a fan-based discussion, and all materials being discussed are owned by Toei and Subaraya Productions. I claim no ownership to the materials being discussed and is purely fan opinion.
Hello everyone and welcome back to TFX. This time I am back with my first Kamen Rider review with Kamen Rider Kuuga. After the end of Black Art X, Kamen Rider went into a 11-year-long hiatus without any new series being made. Kuuga ended up being a huge success, making this not only the first series in the Kamen Rider franchise to air in the Heisei era, but it also revived the franchise as a whole. Kuuga is structured more like a Japanese cop drama than an actual Kamen Rider series, and as such it is not driven by toys, but rather mainly focuses on the characters and their relationship with each other. Being the show that introduced me to the franchise as a whole, I am sure some of you already know my opinion of this show, but I'm still gonna ask, was Kuuga a worthy start to the Kamen Rider franchise in the Heisei era? Or is this nothing more than just new content for the franchise? Well, let's find out, shall we? First, let's start off with the opening. It is fantastic. It is extremely catchy, especially when it gets to... It fits with the story. A protagonist with positivity in the world suffered from darkness. Overall, it's just a great and catchy song, and a great way to introduce Kuuga as a new legend. They do play the second half of the full opening later on in the show, which is really good too. Also, interestingly enough, this is one of the few Kamen Rider shows in the Heisei era to have an ending theme, which I like as well. It definitely has the positive and soothing effect that you would want after a big fight like this, but I usually don't bother listening to the ending in any tokusatsu. Now, let's get into the story of this show. Each episode title consists of a single word or two kanjis. Episode 1 is named Fukatsu, or Revival in English, which not only symbolizes the revival of Kuuga, but also the revival of the entire franchise. We start off in a flashback scene with Riku, the original Kuuga, fighting and defeating kaijins. He then seals himself away in a sarcophagus, along with the kaijins. Even though we don't know their names until later on, I'm still gonna say it here. This is the Gorongi, our kaijins and main villain faction for this show. Switch over to the present day, we see a group of archaeologists who uncover the sarcophagus that houses Riku's mummified body, who is actually still alive since his fingers do twitch. There are also timestamps throughout each episode, which adds more cop drama elements to this show. Switch over again to an airport, we meet a young man cheering up a little boy with his juggling skills. Meet Godai Yusuke, the main protagonist of this show, and the thumbs up. Remember this thumbs up because this is his signature move. Now, Kuuga's overall plot can be summed up into 3 arcs. This first arc is essentially an introductory arc, which features the debut of most of the main characters and the initial fight between the heroes and the Gorongi. In this episode, we meet Sawatari Sakurako. She is the one who translates the ancient symbols that are found throughout the show. On the other hand, the archaeologist team gets murdered by a mysterious figure, who then revives some creatures in a very freaky scene. Switch over to the archaeological side, meet our secondary writer detective Kaoru Ichijo. Switch over to the city, we meet the very first of the Gorongi, the Spider Gorongi, who proceeds to murder the police officers. Also, I love how the bullet drops on the ground after he gets shot. Now, the police found a stone belt earlier. So Yusuke puts on the stone belt, and the belt ends up fusing into his body. While fighting the Spider Gorongi, he transforms into a white armored warrior. Just to note, none of Kuuga's forms are ever mentioned by name in show, but this is his growing form, which is basically his incomplete larvae form since Kuuga's design is based on a stag beetle. So this form is very weak. I like right away how this show starts off because we don't see his main default form the first time he transforms. As for the suit itself, it ain't great, but it makes sense why it looks like this, with the smaller horns and all. And let's face it, this form isn't supposed to look good anyways. We do, however, get this awesome first fight between the Spider Gorongi and Kuuga on a freaking helicopter. He gives Ichijo his signature thumbs up, which is how Ichijo figures out that Yusuke is Kuuga. At the end of each episode, there's an end screen, which the color reflects the main form used in the episode. Episode 2, we see the debut of the Back Gorongi. Remember this guy? Because he appears a lot, Ichijo finds out Yusuke is Kuuga. In his growing form, Yusuke tries to fight the Back Gorongi, but gets defeated. Yusuke sees a vision of a red warrior, and it shows that it is linked to his mindset. But when he sees Natsume Mika, the daughter of one of the archaeologists who died at the hands of Number Zero, crying, this is when Yusuke finds his reason to fight, and we get this cool scene. I present to y'all the Mighty form. This form's finisher is a Rider Kick. Expect to hear this a lot in my Kamen Rider reviews because this is the main finisher move in Kamen Rider. He kills his first Gorongi with this move. The suit is very simple, which is pretty much how all the aesthetics in the show are, simplistic. I like how the suit incorporates abs. I like the color scheme, along with a stag beetle design for the helmet. Overall, this is a simple yet very good looking suit. We do also get this scene between Yusuke and Ichijo. Before I continue, here are some things to know about the Gorongi. First, the Gorongi's basic function as serial killers, especially later on, such as each Gorongi having the same MO every time they kill, which means it's possible to predict their murder patterns. This is basically how the show goes. Yusuke is only there to kill the Gorongi. The police are the ones investigating and determining their murder patterns, so that they can find them before more people die. This is a strong point in this show. The police are extremely useful. Second, they're called the Gorongi, but don't expect to hear this name much in the show, because they're dubbed as unidentified life forms by the police, and they're named based on the order they appear in. Basically, the Spider Gorongi is unidentified life form number 1, Kuuga's growing form is number 2, the Back Gorongi is number 3, etc, etc. The mysterious figure in the first episode who started everything is number 0. Third, the Gorongi have their own language, which wasn't subbed when Kuuga originally aired to essentially give the show an extra element of mystery. Each Gorongi also has a human form, and they have a tattoo that shows what animal they're based on. There are more things to know about the Gorongi, which I'll talk about as I go along. Episodes 3 and 4. These are important episodes because this is when Ichijo starts to work together with Yusuke. Now, researchers have performed analysis on the blood of the Spider Gorongi, which in terms of composition is extremely similar to human blood. At this point, the police don't trust Kuuga, which makes sense since they haven't met Kuuga before. The police is ordered to shoot and kill all unidentified life forms. This is also something I like, where the police don't just aimlessly try the same thing over and over again, but instead constantly upgrade their arsenal. Ichijo tries to convince his higher-up to remove Kuuga from the list without success. Ichijo unsuccessfully tries to contact Yusuke. We also get to see La Belvedere, who is supposed to be the Rose Gorongi. Now, Toku fans will recognize the actor as she goes on to play Deca Bright in Deca Ranger. Be prepared to see her a lot too, and I'll talk about why later. I honestly find her to be quite attractive, not only because of her looks, but also her outfit, especially later on, which props to the actor. She does a great job of portraying a pretty and deadly character. Next, we see 4 Gorongis in their human forms, and 2 motorcyclists show up. One of them tries to molest one of the Gorongis, and she kicks him into the ceiling. I mean, I guess. Anyways, Yusuke transforms, but they both get surrounded by the police, who proceed to shoot them. They escape, though the Gorongi gets a bullet to the eye. This also marks the debut of the Tri-Chaser 2000, Kuuga's first rider machine. These episodes also build up the dynamic between Yusuke and Ichijo because they're similar in that they prioritize protecting others over their lives, which is why Ichijo decides to give the Tri-Chaser to Yusuke. To further set the stage, this Gorongi can run very fast, which means this bike is needed to keep up with her. Before I go on, I want to talk about the Henshin pose. I like it. Yeah, it's simplistic like a lot of things in this show, but I still like it, along with the armor forming piece by piece. This also shows one of the highlights of Kuuga, bike action. I love the way that he uses the dirt bike, like you should with a dirt bike. Kuuga fights this Gorongi in a very fiery scene. The police start to trust Kuuga. We do get this awesome scene at the end of the episode, though. From episodes 5 to 10, Yusuke gains access to 3 additional forms. Unlike the Mighty form, these forms not only give him different abilities, but they also have their own exclusive weapon, which comes from Yusuke taking objects and temporarily changing their atomic structure. The first is the Dragon form. This blue form gives Kuuga enhanced agility and greater jumping abilities, allowing him to scale skyscrapers with ease without him having to do this every time the enemy is on a high tall building. Though he becomes physically weaker. Oh, did I mention the first time he fights a dragon form, he gets thrown off of a building? To make up for the lack in physical strength, dragon form can transform any pole-like object into the dragon rod. This is thanks to Sakurako, who translated more of the ancient language, which contained information on Kuuga's forms. I like this a lot because this shows that even though Yusuke is the one fighting, he has his entire support team with him, aiding him in his fight. Which also brings up another positive aspect of this show. There are no useless characters in this show. This form's finisher is the Splash Dragon, an aerial thrust attack. The next form he acquires is the Pegasus form, aka his sniper form. In this green form, Kuuga receives heightened senses, so he can see, hear, and hit his opponent with extreme precision. Even if the opponent is invisible. The first time he acquires this form, he gets overwhelmed by the heightened senses. Due to the super enhanced senses, he can only be in this form for 50 seconds before the sensory stimulation overwhelms him. And using this form for over 50 seconds will knock him back into his growing form. Now's the right time to mention this, that Kuuga is forced into his growing form, which happens if Yusuke sustains heavy damage in battle, and he won't be able to transform for 2 hours. The weapon for this form is the Pegasus Bowgun, which he makes from any gun-like object. He first locates his target before firing the Blast Pegasus. Oh yeah, did I mention that Yusuke in Pegasus form managed to sense the wasp Gorongi's needle when he shot it from up in the sky and caught it with his fingers before killing him? The last of his initial forms to debut is the Titan form, which probably has one of my favorite introductions out of all the Kuuga forms. In this purple form, he gets enhanced defense capabilities and strength at the cost of speed. The weapon for this form is the Titan Sword, the finisher Calamity Titan. The reason why he fights like this in Titan form is because Yusuke is not that skilled with the sword, and as such, he found the most suitable method for him is to endure the enemy's attacks long enough for him to approach and deal the finishing blow up close. Unlike a lot of later Kamen Rider shows, especially those in the Neo Ace era, Yusuke doesn't master these additional forms at the beginning, which I like because it makes the show more realistic. This makes sense given that this is when we see Yusuke first access them, and you don't usually master something the first time you get it. This is one of the reasons why I love this show. It is very realistic in a lot of areas. All these forms I like the look of. Yes, they're simplistic, but it works well since the show is much more character driven. Because like I said before, Kuuga is more of a J-drama than a Toku show. I like the color scheme that each of these forms have. Out of these three, my least favorite in terms of aesthetics is honestly Pegasus, but that's only in comparison given that this form is the only asymmetrical form out of his 4 basic forms. It also makes sense why these forms look the way they do, with Dragon having a sleek vest design for agility, while Titan has bigger shoulder guards and having an armored design for defense. Yeah, Pegasus is asymmetrical, but it doesn't bother me considering this form isn't used for melee combat. The one thing, at least in the beginning, I didn't like about Dragon is the way that the shoulder guard flips up the way that it does, like here for example. This problem is pretty much non-existent for Pegasus and Titan due to the fighting styles that Yusuke adopts in these 2 forms. I also love how these forms are used in that the weapon doesn't come with a form. Instead, Yusuke has to find objects and temporarily turn them into the weapon. I like how at this point, right away they give us an idea of how serious the Gorongi threat is.
おそらくそこから奴らは蘇った。集団ってのはどれぐらいだ？最低でも200。何？
Episode 11 and 12, Yusuke goes to fulfill a promise with his former elementary school teacher, Kanzaki Shoji, but he had to go fight the Rhino Gorongi, the leader of the zoo group, who committed the worst action ever. Was it killing truck drivers by impaling them with his horn? No. It's bad, but no. You know what's the worst thing he did? He killed a dog. I mean, just how could you do that? Now let's switch over to the Gorongi side for a little bit. It's not actually the Rhino Gorongi's turn to go cause chaos, as the zoo group has actually lost the right to play, since they have not been doing good. But given how much of a temper the Rhino Gorongi has, he decides to go out and play anyways. I also love how we see the Rhino Gorongi kick Yusuke's butt for a bit before he transforms into Kuuga. Mind you that a normal human would be dead in this situation, and the only reason Yusuke is able to withstand it is because the Arco, aka the belt, enhanced his body and physical capabilities, especially in the right foot, which is why he performs his rider kick with his right foot. Also, man, the fight scenes in this show are great, particularly the way Yusuke fights, since he doesn't have much combat experience, at least in the beginning. Initially, he kicks the Rhino Gorongi, but the kick isn't strong enough to kill him. As such, Yusuke practices on perfecting his kick attack by adding a run-up along with a flip. After practicing for a bit, we see for the first time his perfected rider kick, which becomes his Mighty Form finisher from this point onwards. Justice is served, rest in peace Mikoto. Yusuke does manage to meet his teacher as part of the promise, and we learn that Yusuke's signature thumbs up came from him.
五代祐介こういうの知ってるか
Before I move on, this is a good time to mention all the side characters that we've been introduced to up till this point, who are basically either Yusuke's family, friends, or allies. Besides the ones I've already mentioned, let's start with his family. We have Godai Minori, Yusuke's younger sister, who works as a teacher at a daycare. Next, on to his friends, we have Kazari Tamasaburo, or Oyasan, who is a friend of Yusuke's father and owner of the Polo Polo restaurant, along with his niece, Asahina Nana, who dreams of being an actress and develops a crush on Yusuke. John Michel Sore, whose job is to basically research an important artifact that I'll talk about in just a bit. And just to note, his character is American. Tsubaki Shuichi, who is a doctor, and his job is mainly to look after and treat Yusuke when he's injured, while also researching what effects the Arco has on Yusuke's body. He is also responsible for performing autopsies on the Gorongi victims to determine the cause of death, and dissecting Gorongi corpses to basically study their anatomy to determine their weaknesses. Finally, we have the Unidentified Life Form Related Cases Special Joint Investigation Unit, a police division formed for cases specifically related to the Gorongi, and Yusuke's main allies in fighting the Gorongi. In this division, we have Matsukura Sadao, the head of this unit, Sugita Moromichi and Sakurai Tsuyoshi, who are both detectives in this unit, and they're actively out on the field fighting the Gorongi. Sasayama Nozomi, who is the communications officer in this unit, and once again, Toku fans would recognize the actor as she previously played Mega Yellow in Denji Sentai Mega Ranger. The last one I want to mention is Inokita Hikari, who is the one in charge of the science division of the police department, and she does get quite a bit even as a side character because we learned that due to a busy job, she isn't able to spend enough time with her son, which does strain their relationship, but don't worry, it does get fixed. Another thing that I like because of it being realistic is his armor getting damaged in battle. Now in show, the reason is because since the Arco fused with his body, the armor is basically part of his body too, so damage to the armor means damage to his body. Episodes 13 to 16, at the archaeological site shown at the very start of the show, they managed to uncover some more artifacts that when put together forms the shape of a stag beetle. Now, according to Sakurako's translation, this thing, which is called the Gorum, was known as horse armor back in the ancient times. Even when the Gorum was in pieces, it still called out to Yusuke, similar to the way the belt did in the very first episode, which did distract him when he was fighting the Piranha Gorongi. After basically sensing the presence of the modern Kuuga, the Gorum broke out of the truck it was in and started essentially eating up a lot of metal to form its body. The Gorum does find Yusuke and emerges with his bike, creating the Tri-Gorum. But it does have problems in the beginning. First, the bike refuses to work initially, and this is the first time Yusuke kills a Gorongi using the Gorum, where he performs a ram attack. I love this one in particular because he rams the side of the truck and, well, check this out. However, the Gorum does break into pieces, though this gets fixed later on since the Gorum does go a bit haywire whenever Yusuke touches it.
今のはどうした
Episode 17, Kuuga fights a new Gorongi, but this is really just a recap episode. With episode 18, however, this is where we start to enter the second arc of this show, the evolution arc. Yusuke gets poisoned. He does succumb to the poison, but the Amadam does bring him back. I love seeing his sister Sakurako believing that he won't just die like that, and he'll come back. This shows how much of an impact Godai's positivity has had on the people around him. Episodes 20 to 23, this is where we start to see golden electricity coming from Yusuke's body, which serves as a glimpse to the new power that he's getting, and that he is becoming more powerful. In chronological order, we see this with Mighty, Pegasus, and Titan. Though I have a little problem with this only because it doesn't happen with Dragon. This is also shown in the ending screens. Yusuke does get an idea of a phrase for when he changes forms. Also, this is where we learn the true reason why the Gorongi are killing as many people as they do. Yup, no big reason whatsoever, literally just a game. This game, which they mentioned a lot up to this point, is called the Geigeru. The reason why the Bat Gorongi is not out causing chaos is because 1, he's a Zoo Gorongi, and 2, he killed people before the Geigeru started, so he lost the right to play. This is where we also see another Gorongi, La Doldogu, who plays an important role in the Geigeru, which I'll talk about later. Another thing I need to mention is that not all the Gorongis are killed on screen, because Kuuga does kill some of them off screen. We also get told, at least at this point, how many people have died at the hands of the Gorongi.
第35号の事件までで被害者の数はどれくらいになったと思う ?1389 人ですよね。悔しいです。
Keep in mind, this is only halfway through the show, and this number is only going to go up by who knows how much. From episodes 24 to 28, we see the debut of his rising forms, or golden power forms, after Yusuke basically allows himself to be a conduit for electricity, along with his own will of wanting to become stronger to defeat the stronger Gorongis. Interestingly, these forms debut in reverse order of his 4 basic forms. The suits gain gold outlines on them, the weapons and finishers become the rising versions of their respective weapon and finisher. We first see Rising Titan, with the weapon being the Rising Titan sword, and the finisher being the Rising Calamity Titan. Next is Rising Pegasus, with the Rising Pegasus Bowgun and the Rising Blast Pegasus. Although what is interesting with this is he doesn't kill his opponent in this form's debut. In fact, he gets his arm pierced. Shoots our Gorongi in the wing, although he does rip off his wing. Unlike Pegasus, he can stay in this form for 1 minute and 20 seconds. The one after this is Rising Dragon, with the Rising Dragon Rod and the finisher, the Rising Splash Drag. I like the look of all of his rising forms, where the golden outlines don't take anything away from their simplistic nature, and also how the Armadan becomes gold in color. My favorite out of these is without a doubt Rising Titan, which looks extremely badass. However, one problem I do have with Rising Dragon is that, unlike the others, this form is only used a grand total of twice. This is also where we get introduced to a new batch of Gorongis, the Gold Gorongis. And this is where we start to see the Gorongis having a specific pattern when it comes to killing people. Just a note, the first Gorongi killed by Kuuga in Rising Pegasus was a Go Gorongi. This brings up another positive aspect. We see the police, especially from this point onwards, working out what pattern the Gorongi are operating by to basically predict where they'll strike next. Episode 29 and 30, another Go Gorongi, the Turtle Gorongi, has come into play, and he chooses his victims using a roulette table before murdering them by throwing his weapon. Yusuke tries to fight him using Rising Titan, but gets beaten. Realizing the need to use a more stronger power, Yusuke assumes Rising Mighty for the first time, which once again is a very cool looking suit. He gains the Mighty Anklet on his right leg, and his finisher becomes the Rising Mighty Kick, aka his 3-block rider kick. Now, how do I put this? Good news is he does manage to kill this Gorongi. Bad news, however, is that he also took out a few city blocks with him. As a result of him acquiring the rising forms, we do see a change in the end screens. Episode 32 and 33. Kuuga faces another Go Gorongi, and Yusuke tries to fight him, but his current bike is suffering from mental fatigue due to the gore merging with it. To keep up, they need the Beat Chaser 2000. However, because of the incident with Rising Mighty, the higher-ups in the police department are extremely hesitant on giving it to Yusuke. This serves as a shifting point that Yusuke and the police are now officially working together, full on, because now the police knows that Yusuke is Kuuga.
はい、よろしくお願いします。
五代祐介さんですか？
はい、
私も協力させてもらいます。笹山です。
よろしくお願いします。
The Tri-Chaser gets damaged beyond use. Yusuke tries to snipe him using Rising Pegasus and the Gorm, which doesn't work. This new bike allows Kuuga to outmaneuver the Gorongi before finishing him off with the Rising Mighty Kick. Followed by a huge explosion, only this time, it's not in the city. Episodes 34 and 35. These are my two favorite episodes of this show. Before I go into why these are my favorite episodes, let's set the stage first. We start this episode with a boy in the hospital who's frightened as hell, and the reason is because he knows he's about to die, until he actually dies. Yes, you heard me right. He knew he was gonna die. The Gorongi out to play this time is the Porcupine Gorongi, and these are my favorite episodes mainly because of the brutality, creepiness, and cruelty displayed. This Gorongi is out murdering people, specifically second-year male students at Midorikawa High School.
3人で
これで緑川学園2年生男子の死者は91人中78人になった。
This Gorongi kills people by shooting quills into their heads,
なぜか何
which basically means there's absolutely no way to prevent the victims from dying. Wait, the brutality and cruelty doesn't end there. As shown before, these victims were actually told that they will die in 4 days.
被害を受けた生徒たちに何かを指し4日後に死ぬと宣告していたというものもある。
And as such, they basically lived in absolute terror, under the despair that they know when they'll die an inevitable death. We know we all will die at some point, but imagine knowing when exactly you'll die, especially in such a short period. You would be lying if you say you won't be terrified. And you know what makes this worse? we see glimpses of this Gorongi in his human form, which his human form basically screams creepiness and sadistic. He is showing enjoyment, and the way these scenes are shot adds to it, as shown with these moments. He even admits it himself. It got so bad that one of his victims committed suicide.
自殺しました。自分も想像のつかない死に方をするんだという恐怖に怯えて、発作的に病院の窓から飛び降りたそうです。
Which didn't count towards his kill count.
一郎さん、もしも一連の事件が未確認生命体の仕業だったとしたら、自殺者はゲームの数に含まれないんじゃないでしょうか。だとしたら、
Yusuke tries to fight him, but fails. Because one of his victims committed suicide, he had to find another student to kill, so the police's mission is to protect him. This leads to my favorite scene in Kuuga, the beatdown. Yusuke transforms. Kuuga rams him with his bike. He tries to stab Kuuga. He gets driven into a lake. Kuuga summons the Titan sword. Then the Gorongi throws his quills at him. Kuuga turns into Rising Titan and murders him. Wait, it doesn't end there. We see glimpses of a black armored Kuuga. At the same time, Sakurako is called to Nagano to assist in investigating the deaths of multiple Gorongis, which they suspect to be the work of Number Zero.
34体を殺したと思われる未確認生命体は第0号の可能性が出てきた。
We do see La Belvade talking to an unknown figure using the Gorongi language, and we find out the reason why these Gorongis are getting killed. These episodes are very powerful because it not only shows the Gorongi's cruelty escalating, but it also shows Yusuke not having a smile on his face, as shown here.
悔しいです。どうして何もできなかったんだろうって。
And what happens if Yusuke were to fight with rage in his heart. Episode 36, we enter the final arc, aka the endgame. I love this because the glimpse of Kuuga's final form signifies the start of the endgame, as the end screen of the previous episode was black. We get hinted towards a relation between Kuuga and Number Zero. Sakurako found a bloody character. Linto was an ancient tribe, and humans are the descendants of said tribe. However, Sakurako thinks this may actually be from the Gorongi language, because the Linto tribe was a very peaceful tribe, so it doesn't make sense for this character to be in their language. It also turns out that Riku used himself to seal Number Zero, so when Riku's coffin was opened, the seal got undone, which ultimately started everything. This is also where we see some infighting within the Gorongi. The back Gorongi previously found a discarded artifact which he uses on himself to evolve. This upgrade removes his weakness to light, and he fights with the Gorongi that is currently out to play. Episodes 37, 38, and 39. We find out that the Kuuga mark, which was originally thought to have 2 horns, actually had 4 horns. At the same time, within the Gorongi ranks, we hear them mention a name, Daguva, who is the one behind the Gorongi killings and the back Gorongis trying to seek out by confronting Belva, before getting his butt kicked by the Kabuto Gorongi. Ichijo comes face to face with Belva, who mentions Daguva before injuring him. We also find out that the artifact the back Gorongi used came from Daguva. Belva comments that the lintel has changed. After all, times have changed. Now the back Gorongi has evolved further in what I think is a very creepy scene. While more Gorongis are being hunted. Now the evolved back Gorongi has become more bloodthirsty and goes on a murderous rampage to seek out Daguva to kill him. Yusuke decides to deal with the current plain Gorongi before going to deal with the back Gorongi. This Gorongi kills her victims using a very strong acid. As such, Kuuga uses his bike to take her to an empty warehouse the police found to contain both the explosion and the acid before killing her. This brings up another strong aspect of this show. Because the explosions are becoming more deadly as a result of both the Gorongi and Kuuga becoming stronger, the police must find suitable locations to finish off the Gorongi and evacuate people as needed to ensure that the incident with Rising Mighty does not happen again. Next, Ichijo and Kuuga go to deal with the back Gorongi. Suddenly, the back Gorongi senses Daguva's presence. Episode 40 and 41. I love how it starts by giving us an idea of how powerful Daguva is. Do get this scene, which is one of the reasons why I love Yusuke as a protagonist.
おはようございます。五代祐介です。皆さん元気ですか？
元気ですよ。どうしたんですかいきなり。
あ、桜井さんおはようございます。いや、風がずいぶん冷たくなったんで。
This is also when we find out Kuuga may become the bringer of ultimate darkness, like number 0 if he fights with Rage. Now this makes sense. Rage causes you to lose control. Kuuga assumes Rising Pegasus to fight the Shark Gorongi, but during which he gets distracted by the presence of a person in a white outfit, which results in him getting harpooned. I'll just say this now, this is N. Daguva Zeba, the leader of the Gorongi tribe. And I love how we don't see him yet. Instead, we start off with only glimpses of him in the creepiest way possible, with the ear-ringing background noise and how these scenes are shot. Now there are only 3 gold Gorongis left, collectively called the Gave a Girl. Yusuke is trying to hold back his rage. Kuuga makes 2 Rising Titan swords, which is cool, and I'm sad he doesn't do this more. Now is a good time to talk more about the Gorongi. Each Gorongi is a 3-part naming scheme consisting of group, personal name, and organism type. Let's talk about the groups or ranks. The ranks are Zu, Mei, Go, La, and En, where each function differently as part of the Geigeru, and each group also has a leader. The first Gorongis we saw were of the Zu group, who kill people using their own physical strength and abilities, and they are assigned a number of people within a given time, which they tally using a bracelet. The next ones were the Mei Gorongis, who kill people using inbuilt weapons, and they assign themselves a number of victims within a given time, which they also record using a bracelet. Next we have Go, who each have a unique pattern of choosing victims, which, like I said, the Gorongi are basically serial killers. Also, like I mentioned before, they can make weapons the same way Kuuga does, with 3 of them gaining the ability to change forms. However, they don't tally their kill count themselves, so this is where the La group comes in. Doldo, B9, is responsible for tallying their kill count using an abacus, while Belva, B1, is responsible for basically deciding whose turn it is. So essentially, these 2 act as the judges and don't participate in the Geigeru. Outside of N, the leader, the Go group is the strongest group of Gorongis. Episodes 42 and 43, the Buffalo Gorongi comes into play. You can see Yusuke trying very hard to hold back his rage. Because you gotta know, this Gorongi's kill count is in the hundreds. Kuuga tries to fight him, but the Gorongi changes forms, summons his weapon, and overpowers Kuuga. He turns into Titan, but the weapon just dents Titan's armor like it is nothing. However, the Grongi gets hit with a tranquilizer round, which slows him down to give Kuuga the chance to take him elsewhere. He slays his Grongi by inputting his golden power into his bite. This is where we learn about what the Grongi actually are, where biologically they're essentially the same as humans. They look and are as strong as they are because of the stone in their belts on the abdomen, which works the same as Kuuga's armor. Another thing we learn is that by comparing Yusuke's X-ray scans with the back Grongi scans, biologically Yusuke is becoming basically the same as Daguva. Because remember what I said earlier that the back Grongi evolved thanks to Daguva's power? However, Yusuke won't become the exact same as Daguva. Why do I say this? Think about the differences between Yusuke and the Grongi. One of them is their will, or how they use their power. So as long as Yusuke doesn't lose his composure, he won't become the bringer of ultimate darkness like Daguva is. In the aftermath of the fight against the Buffalo Grongi, the Goron changed colors after Yusuke used his golden power with it, and they provided us with another demonstration of Daguva's power. Yusuke once again senses his presence and changes into Pegasus, but... Episode 44 and 45. I love these episodes because the police get a more formal introduction to Yusuke. And Yusuke joins the police discussion. Yusuke provides a description of Daguva even though he hasn't seen him yet, and the police are getting what they need to end this fight. One is the nerve-breaking bullets, which the science department is making thanks to the information from the autopsy of the Grongi corpses. Now the last Gogu Grongi, the Kabuto Grongi, has started his game, where his targets are warriors like policemen and soldiers. He gained golden power, and we see a glimpse of it here. Also, we hear Daguva talk for the first time, and it sounds weirdly innocent, which makes it creepy. I love this scene here because it shows the Grongi becoming more deadly and the number of victims piling up thanks to their escalating brutality. Yusuke tries to fight him using Pegasus, Dragon, Titan, and Mighty, but pretty much gets beaten the hell out of as shown here, and here. Before finally getting obliterated by the Kabuto Grongi's Kaijin kick. While all of this is happening, Ichijo finds number B9 and shoots him with the marking bullet, and B9 responds by transforming into his Grongi form and pushes him off, though Ichijo grabs on and pulls himself up, which, wow. In the hospital, Sakurako convinces Tsubaki to give Yusuke another shock to help him become stronger, to not only allow him to protect other people's smiles, but also help Yusuke smile more. Then Yusuke's heartbeat goes down and Tsubaki performs electrotherapy on him. Episode 46. It turns out that Yusuke lowered his heartbeat to receive a second electrotherapy, which, wow, that's badass. Now, the Kondo Grongi and the Kabuto Grongi are fighting. The reason is because the Kabuto Grongi was close to entering the Zagiba Skeguru, which is the final round. However, the Kondo Grongi got his abacus destroyed by Ichijo, which reset the Kabuto Grongi's kill count, and as such, he wants to kill him. Let's switch to the human side for a bit. Inokita completed the nerve-breaking bullets, but because of this, she didn't go home and she fears that she has estranged her son, which I understand since she was successful in her job, not really as a mother. However, John encourages her to not give up. He tells her that your son never told you that he hated you or thought of you as a bad mother, so you shouldn't give up on making him smile again. This gives her the courage to mend her relationship with her son, and I gotta admit, it's a very touching moment. On the other side, Ichijo, Sugita, and Sakare reach the stadium where the Condor and Kabuto Gorongi are, which they found thanks to the marking bullet that Ichijo shot into the Condor Gorongi. The Condor Gorongi flies away after getting some feathers torn off, with Sugita and Sakare going after him, where they kill him with the nerve-breaking bullets. Ichijo goes after the Kabuto Gorongi before coming face to face with Belva. Ichijo tries to shoot her but gets beaten until Yusuke arrives. During this fight, his increasing golden power upgrade into Amazing Mighty. I love this form, not only because it looks cool with a black and gold, but it foreshadows his final form. This is also shown when from this episode onwards, the end screen becomes pitch black. Unlike Rising Mighty, Kuuga now has the mighty ankle on both feet, and his finisher is a drop kick version of his Rising Mighty finisher. With this kick came the defeat of the last Go Gorongi. Now, with most of the other Gorongis dead, Daguva still stands in humanity's way, and this gives us the first unobscured appearance of him in his human form. Episode 47 and 48, Yusuke initially tries to fight Daguva in his Amazing Mighty form, and it does not work. He gets beaten very badly. I love their first fight scene because, well, see for yourself. The way the scene is in black and white, Daguva laughing while setting people on fire, and Yusuke struggling makes this one of the best and creepiest scenes in the show. We also get a sense of how sadistic this dude is. Daguva starts to bring the ultimate darkness by first summoning endless heavy rain. Accepting what he needs to be calm to defeat Daguva, Yusuke visits his friends and family, knowing that he may not come back. We also get another glimpse of Daguva's creepiness. On the other side, Ichijo encounters Belva, and she tells him that humans will soon become just like the Gorongi. Which to an extent I think some humans already have. She runs off, but Ichijo shoots her, taking her down, which makes sense since she and Ichijo sorta had a kinda connection. I love how both La Group Gorongis were killed by the police instead of Kuuga. The police have finished the radar system that'll track where Daguva is, because like I said, the police are extremely useful. Thanks to the radar, Yusuke finds Daguva, who has slaughtered many people in Nagano, and tells Yusuke to meet him at Mount Kuro to finish things the same place it began at. Prior to this, Kuga's arm got damaged in his first fight with Daguva, and as such, he knows that he could lose control once he assumes his final form. So he asks Ichijo to kill him by shooting his damaged arm if he were to lose control, to which Ichijo reluctantly agrees, and we see Yusuke's ultimate final transformation. I love the design of his ultimate form with the spikes on his shoulders, arms, and legs, the color scheme, the abs, and the 4 horns in the helmet. This is a great final form, and it works incredibly well with the story, along with probably one of the best and climatic final fights ever, because they first light each other on fire, and proceed to beat the bloody hell out of each other. way it changes from their suit to their human looks, along with no dialogue or music, just shows that it is two individuals going at it, which is why I love this final fight. They damage each other's arms, cancelling their transformations. And then some more beating the hell out of each other. You punch me, I punch you until they both fall down, with Yusuke injured and Dagova dying. The last Gorongi has finally been defeated. Humanity has triumphed at last, finally concluding the 1-year fight against the Gorongi. Now, episode 49 is an epilogue set 3 months after the defeat of Dagova. I love this episode because we see how much Yusuke's positivity and his thumbs up have impacted the people around him, especially with the police. We also find out that the Gorem had a failsafe, which is if Kuuga were to lose control of his final form and fall into complete darkness, it would turn into sand to prevent its power from being used for evil. However, this didn't happen because Yusuke didn't fight with hatred, but instead with kindness, which is how he managed to control his ultimate form, shown with his eyes being red instead of black. In the end, we see a young man entertaining a group of kids by juggling. That's right, this is Godai Yusuke, who has continued his adventures to heal his emotions, which he does need after fighting against something as brutal and violent as the Gorongis. That concludes the story of Kamen Rider Kuuga. Something unfortunate to mention though is that after Kuuga finished airing, Joe Odagiri has never reprised his role, and as such, this episode is the last time we ever see him as Godai Yusuke. Now, let's move on to the characters, starting with the heroes first. Yusuke, aka Kamen Rider Kuuga, aka the man with 2,000 skills, aka one of the best Kamen Rider protagonists in Kamen Rider history. He's not my personal number one favorite, but he's up there as one of the best. Every time he gives you the thumbs up, you know things will be a-okay and that there's no fear to be had. He is very optimistic, and even when he has to fight against the Gorongi, he always makes sure to put up a smile on his face, no matter how difficult it is. He's also a very realistic protagonist, because he's optimistic, yes, but he can still give in to rage, which makes sense. I mean, let's face it, most of us are probably going to have this exact same reaction. Even though we see glimpses of his ultimate form earlier, he didn't transform into one until literally his final battle with Dagova, and that's only because he knows that the ultimate form is the only form of Kuuga that has the power to defeat Dagova. Seeing him sacrifice his own smile to protect other people's smile is something I respect deeply about him. He's not afraid to do what needs to be done for other people's sake, even though he doesn't like violence. To me, he felt like the perfect person to be Kuuga, since he didn't lose his cool and sense of kindness, which is how he was able to control his ultimate form. By the end of the show, you can see how his positivity has impacted the people around him, where even people at the police station, which you would think is a place with a serious atmosphere, are sharing smiles and a thumbs up. They even mentioned it themselves that if someone else other than Yusuke became Kuuga, there's a chance that they wouldn't be able to fight till the very end. Also, here's a fun fact about this actor. Kuuga introduced something that is named after Yusuke's actor, Joe Odagiri, the Odagiri effect. This is basically when a show that primarily has a male demographic attracts more female viewers than expected because of the show's attractive male lead actors or characters. But Yusuke himself is just a great character. He's very optimistic, very relatable, and very willing to fight for the sake of others. Ichijo, the secondary rider of the show really, just without armor. Even though he didn't have the power to fight off the Gorongi for majority of the show, he is the one who gives Yusuke the equipment he needs to fight against the Gorongi. He and Yusuke have extremely similar personalities, where they are both hardworking and dedicated to their mission of defeating the Gorongi. Even when they're injured, they still focus more on their duties of fighting the Gorongi than on recovery. Ichijo's personality also serves as a good contrast to Yusuke's personality, as he's a lot more serious than Yusuke, which makes sense given that he's a police officer while Yusuke is an adventurer before becoming Kuuga. He is a very useful character because remember, he was the only police officer in the beginning who knows that Kuuga is Yusuke and completely trusts him to be on their side, unlike the rest of the police. Yusuke isn't fighting alone against the Gorongi. He has help from both his friends and the police, especially Ichijo. I mean, let's face it, the police does most of the work. Yusuke is just there to kill them, because Ichijo's always the one who tells Yusuke where the Gorongi is so that he can go to fight them. You can see how much Ichijo has changed because of Yusuke's optimism. Like, Ichijo at the beginning was very serious, but he does soften up the more he works with Yusuke. By the final battle, you can tell that Ichijo is who Yusuke confides in the most, since he asks Ichijo to shoot him if he loses control of himself. He's not a rider, but at the same time, let's face it, he also technically is the second rider at the same time. That's the heroes. Now, let's talk about the Gorongi as a whole, led by Daguva Zeba. I quite like the Gorongi as Kamen Rider villains, because they're extremely brutal, menacing, and sadistic, which is how villains should be like. Plus, the reasons why they kill people is not to take over the world, no. The whole purpose behind it was to play a game, essentially just killing people for fun. I also like their sense of mystery, not just because they have their own language, but it's also never revealed exactly what their end goal is, since none of the Gorongi actually completed their part of the Geiguru. I also love the ranking system that the Gorongi have when it comes to the Geiguru, because one, it gives a legitimate reason why they aren't all out there murdering people, and two, this creates conflict within the Gorongi tribe, which makes sense considering you can't expect every one of them to get along with each other, especially with the back Gorongi considering how he pretty much gets treated like dirt the entire time. Although the Gorongi don't have much development, they're vicious enough for you to pay attention to them, and they do in a way represent humanity. What do I mean by this? Remember how Yusuke brutally murdered the porcupine Gorongi? Well, this is what happens if people were to lose their humanity. The Gorongi do not have any sense of love or kindness, which is really why they can kill as many people as they do. Not just because they physically can, but their lack of compassion results in them not seeing anything wrong with it. I love this idea that the Gorongi depicts the fact that looking human does not make you human, whether it is the Gorongi or people. If Yusuke and pretty much any human lose their feelings of kindness, love, or compassion, they become the very thing they're fighting against, because these feelings are what stops us from becoming as violent as the Gorongi. Now, as for Daguva himself, okay, for the little amount of screen time he gets in show, since before the very end of the show we mostly see glimpses of his presence, this show did a great job of portraying how sadistic, intimidating, and creepy he is as a villain. The fact that he managed to overwhelm Kuuga's Pegasus form in his human form, and every time he laughs whenever he fights or kills people, just makes him that much scarier and more sadistic, at least to me. And you know what makes this worse? Is the fact that he's portrayed more or less as an innocent child, especially through his voice. This is also displayed in the final battle as he is wearing white while Yusuke wears black. You would usually associate white with good or right, and black with evil or wrong, but it is reversed here. The white that Daguva wears is a symbol of nothingness, and I love how the show and his actor conveyed his smile to have a completely different meaning to Yusuke's, given the fact that he enjoys what he does. Speaking of sadistic and scary, besides Daguva, another Gorongi that comes to my mind is the porcupine Gorongi. Like I mentioned before, to me, outside the leader, this guy is the second scariest and most sadistic. Overall, the Gorongi aren't great as characters, but they're definitely fantastic villains. That sums up the characters. Now on to my final thoughts of this show. Overall, this show is amazing. A S-tier show for sure. And it is not only because it introduced me to the franchise. The show does a great job of portraying the idea of light and darkness in humanity. The way that the show leans more towards a Japanese cop drama makes Kuuga one of the most realistic Kamen Rider shows out there, where the police initially don't trust Kuuga, the police being useful, Yusuke learning to use his other forms and him holding back his hatred for the Gorongi to prevent himself from becoming the very thing he's fighting against, etc. I didn't remember much about it since I first watched it when I was very young, but upon rewatching it and seeing all these ideas and concepts that they convey in the show, this is one of my absolute favorite Kamen Riders, and probably just Toku in general. It is not my favorite of all time, but it's up there as one of the greatest. Yeah, the pacing is slow, but the characters are all amazing, and the Gorongi are menacing enough for you to care about them as villains, along with a lack of filler. This show definitely serves as a worthy start to the Heisei era for Kamen Rider. I won't say start off with Kuuga if you plan to get into Kamen Rider, but if you haven't seen it, you got to check it out. I 100% recommend this show. Now, I reviewed shows from 2 out of the 3 major Toku franchises that I plan to review for this channel. As such, next time on TFX, join me as I will be compiling my top picks for the 3rd and last of the 3 major well-known tokusatsu franchises I'll be reviewing. Ultraman. That's my review of Kamen Rider Kuuga. Feel free to comment what you think about Kamen Rider Kuuga in the comment section below. Also, don't forget to subscribe, turn on notifications, and last but not least, give both this video and each other a thumbs up. Bye everybody.